Hello everyone and welcome to another video here on White Coats and Corgis. Today I'm going to be showing you a clip from the Premed Experience, which is a free virtual event that I hosted back in March of 2023. Alright, let's go ahead and get started.
Fantastic. So I think I can take the next question here. This
All
one is
right.
asking, how is the MCAT scored?
Mm.
So in this case, just to give you more information about the MCAT, because I know earlier in my presentation, I was talking for the most part how to score well in the MCAT, not so much what the MCAT is. So you should know the MCAT has 4 sections. The first section is the chemical and physical foundations of biological systems. That is a very long name. That's why people typically prefer to just say the Chem Phys section. The second section is the Cars section. The third section is the Bio-Chem section. And the fourth section is the Psych-Soc section. Each section has longer names, but the key thing is there are 4 sections on the exam. Now, each section is going to test different concepts. So the Chem Phys section is going to be focusing a lot on general chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, biochemistry. The Bio-Chem section is going to have a lot of focus on biology and biochemistry. And the Psych-Soc section, of course, is focusing on psychology and sociology. All 4 of these sections, they receive a score between 118 to 132. So 118 is the lowest score, 132 is the highest score, and the scale is really a 15-point scale, right? Because from 118 to 132, there's 15 numbers. And one thing you might be thinking about is, why do we have such a weird scale, right? Like, why are you using 118 to 132 as opposed to 1 to 15 for all 4 sections? Well, there's several reasons why the AMC made this decision, but I would say one of the important ones is they wanted medical schools to focus on the students that were above average when it came to the MCAT exam. So right in the middle of that 15-point scale is a 125. So if you have a student who gets an average score in all 4 sections, they've got a 500. So that makes it very easy for medical school admissions committees to look at a student's score. If it's above 500, they're above average. If it's in the 400s, they are below average. So hopefully that gives you some context in terms of the MCAT format and how it's scored.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can find a good MCAT question for you here. You guys are asking amazing questions, basically. So we have like a plethora of good questions here, basically. Let's see. Will they still like this? So here's one, Kent. So someone said earlier we were talking about gap years. What if I take the MCAT and then take a gap year and apply to medical school? Will they still accept the score, or would I have to take a new MCAT?
That's a great question. So I said earlier, all you really want to do is make sure you take the MCAT before you apply to medical school, but I should have qualified that to say that you don't want to make sure you take the MCAT too early, right? So you don't want to take the MCAT in your freshman year and, number one, you're not going to be ready. But the other important thing is that your MCAT score is not going to be valid forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for most medical schools, your MCAT score is going to be valid for 3 years. But the safest way to check this, of course, is for any medical school that you're interested in. If you look at their admissions website, they're always going to have information on when is the last or when is the oldest MCAT score that they're still accepting. So that's something that you can check just to make sure that when you take the MCAT, your score is still going to be valid when you choose to apply to medical school. So in this student situation, if you're planning on taking the MCAT and waiting a year until you apply, that's not a problem at all because you're well within the 3 years that most medical schools will accept.
Oh, okay. Wow. Just sort of, Ken, while you're talking about this stuff, to piggyback off that, because I saw a good question there. Somebody asked when they should start scheduling, studying for the MCAT, basically planning a schedule for the MCAT, and how our programs even help with the scheduling of the sections, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So when to start studying for the MCAT is a really good question to ask. And there's actually another question you have to answer first as part of that, which is to figure out when you want to apply to medical school. So as if you were present earlier in the morning presentation by Dr. Marinelli, she was talking about the timeline for applying to medical schools. And you can apply as a traditional applicant. So that would be in the summer after your junior year. You can take a gap year. So that would be applying the summer after you graduate, or you can take multiple gap years. And at that point, you're just applying any period of time after you graduated. With regard to the MCAT, it's actually quite simple, which is you simply need to take the MCAT before you're going to apply to medical school. And because medical school applications generally open at the beginning of the summer around May or June, if you're able to take the MCAT by spring of that year you want to apply, then you're going to be good to go. However, it doesn't mean that you can't take the exam earlier. So there's a number of students who will take the MCAT earlier. So they'll take it in January, or they'll even take it the summer before they're planning on applying to medical school. There's really no right or wrong answer there. Any of those time periods are fine as long as you're taking the MCAT before you apply to medical school. Typically, what I recommend students to focus on is to think about when you're going to have a good period of time to be able to focus on the exam. So what I mean by that is you don't want to sign up to take the MCAT this May if you know your spring course load is going to be very heavy. You want to make sure that whatever test date you pick, the months before that test date are going to give you adequate time to be able to prepare for the exam. So that's why some students, they'll take lighter course loads in the fall to prepare for a January test date, or they'll take a lighter course load in the spring for an April or May test date. And there's also other students who they don't want to worry about classes at all. So they decide that they want to dedicate a summer to focusing on the MCAT.